Hello to everyone who's tuning in. I'm here today with Sissel, and we're going to see what's going on. Sissel, you got any thoughts today for anybody or anything or about anything?
Not exactly. I really look forward to hear what they have, what they want to share, and who
Alrighty.
through.
I have to say that Sissel and I both had a busy night. We are both of us on our own personal journeys, and it sometimes when you're open, your sleep can be filled with a lot of work. It's just that way. And if any of you wake up feeling like you did a lot of work during the night and you're tired in the morning, you probably did. So let's see. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. That's the way that we cheat. Cheap, cheap. We cheap at each other. But do we really say anything? This is the question. My name is Thomas. And I tend to take a back seat when everybody's cheaping because I don't want to join the chorus. I want to figure out what we need to do and how to do it. You might say I'm pretty practical that way. And so when everybody gets into their hen pecking mode, I say, hey, I'm backing away because I don't want to get pecked by all these woodpeckers because they peck constantly in an effort to try to effect some kind of reaction out of you. So if people are pecking at you, just back away and let them peck at the windowsill. And if they can learn to come in the door like respectable people, then let them in. But if they're just going to try to use you as a pecking board, then I don't see much point in it. Do you?
No.
So as you go about your day and people come up to you and say, hey, you should do it this way, you should do it that way, you should do this, you should do that, then just say, have a good day. Have a good day. And this includes all you children out there. I'm not expecting that there are children watching this. However, some of you still retain a lot of energy from your childhood, and you still feel a little bit resentful about it, or you have forgotten entirely about what your mother, father, friends, or relatives said to you and how it affected you. It affected you, it did. Because when other people tell you what to do, how to wear your hair, then you begin to get pretty blue. And you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. Because if your mother says to you, you can't wear your hair that way to school, you say, but I like it. And my friends like it. And she says, well, if you wear your hair to school that way, then the principal will say, I got to send you home with a note that says, if you don't get those locks cut off, I'm going to have to suspend you. You can't come to this school. And you say, hooray, hooray. I don't have to go to that school. He's going to suspend me. Yippee. I get an out. I get a break. And your mother says, we can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. What would the neighbors say? What would the neighbors say? What will happen to you if you don't get an education? And you say, well, I can get a fine education on the internet or reading books or just living life. That's the way, best way of all to get an education. And she will say, don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. You'll end up a druggie. You'll end up on the street. You've got to go to school. So you're going to have to cut your hair. And you say, I got to cut my hair. I got to cut my hair because if I don't cut my hair, my mother's going to keep ragging at me and my principal's going to suspend me and all the community is going to look at my family and say, you raised a doper and a roper of his own reality. He roped in his own reality because he decided to wear his hair that way. And now you have to cut that rope so he can't have his own reality and force him into yours. You see, you have to force him into your reality. And that's the way it goes on earth, you see, because you have to accept the reality that is handed to you. You don't get to create your own. What do I mean by creating a reality? Every one of you is a creative being. However, you have taken the sword of creativity and used it to clean your teeth. And you don't really care that you have the power inside of you to change your reality to reflect your own individuality. You don't really care. So you just keep doing what they tell you to do. And some of you say, well, I'm not creative. I don't have the power to change my reality, but I can be the one who is the king of the hill. And so I'm going to be the king of the hill. And you can do that by many means, but you climb over the heads of others in order to be better than them. And then you get to be the king of the hill, and everybody bows down to you and says, you are the king of the hill, you fool. You are the king of the hill. And that means we got to take you down. We have to take you down. And that's the way they look at it. And they try. And sometimes they do succeed in taking you down. Usually, in fact, they can take you down eventually. But some people manage to evade it and they remain the king of the hill. And then they say, I'm still the king of the hill. So what the fuck is the point of it all? What is the point of it all? I might as well be dead because there's nothing here for me. Because nobody loves me because I'm the king of the hill, you see? And so I might as well die. And then I won't have to worry about it anymore because at least I died while I was still king of the hill. And everybody can say, hey, let's praise him today because he was king of the hill. And if I stay longer, they might pull me down off the hill, trample me underground. And I don't want that to happen. And I don't want to die when I'm at my lowest point, you see. I need to die when I'm at my peak. And this is the story of Steve. He died while he was at his peak. You see? We took a little break to add a friend, Roselle. Thank you, Roselle, for being here. So we'll take up again with you, Thomas. Thomas says that Steve had a very, very, very rough time in his last lifetime. And most people don't realize how rough it was. You, Stephanie, know his story and you know his secret. And so you know how rough it was for him. You know that he went through most of his life in fear. He was so afraid to look behind him to see what was coming after him. So he just kept pushing forward, and that was all he could do. It was all he could do. And so those people who think that Steve Jobs was the one to emulate, get a clue, get a clue. He did what he had to do to survive until he died. And that is the truth. That is the truth. And he always knew that he would not live a long life. He knew that from the time he was a boy. because that was ingrained into his psyche, you might say, when he was born, that he just had to get there and get it done and get out of there because it wasn't going to be pretty. It wasn't going to be pretty, and it wasn't pretty. From the inside, it was not pretty. From the outside, some of you, all you see is that pretty Apple computer or phone in front of you, and you don't know the story behind it. And I'm not going to tell you all the secrets. They are known to some who are following the story along with all of us here. And you know that he had a rough go of it from the time he was born. And you also know that he had a lot of anxiety throughout his entire life. And he had a lot of anxiety in his last life because Steve has the capacity to encompass reality like nobody I've ever seen. Nobody I have ever seen. And I have known that man since we were playmates on Nibiru, you see, because we are a trinity in our energy. Steve and I and Steph all share the same energy. And you ask, what does that mean? How can that be? I can only tell you that it is the way it is because every one of you has at least one other individual in heaven or on earth who shares your energy with you, every single one of you. So it happens that a few of us are triplets, you see, and we have to live through the ravages of the savages, just like you, just like you. We had to grow up on earth, just like you, just like you. We had to come to see reality as it was presented to us, just like you, just like you. And we had to come to see that we were the ones in control, you see. We were the ones in control of our own reality. Now, I particularly have never forgotten this lesson that I learned so long ago that it was up to us, you see. It was up to us, you see, to change our own reality. We couldn't look to others to do it. We had to do it together. Some of you know that Steph and I have had many lives together as husband and wife or in some other configuration that was very close, parent and child, for example. And I trust her with my life because without her, you see, life would be impossible for me. This is the nature of the split in the original creation of the soul energy into a physical form, because one way or another, in order to be visible, you have to have someone to see you, and you have to be able to see them. If this does not happen, what do you trust upon? You can only trust upon the fact that you exist, because you do exist. You exist, and this is the inception of the story, you see. You exist as a thought in the mind of God. This is a statement that has been put before you before, that you are a thought in the mind of God. And few people understand it. They say, how can I be a thought? How can God have a thought? Where did it begin? How did it begin? Who is this? Why is this? And all I can say to you, oh my God, I just got it. I'm sorry, it just got it. And now I say to you, I think, and therefore I am. I think, and therefore I am. I got to stop a minute because the reason I just got it is Thomas was Descartes.
Oh,
Wow. Wow.
Forgot I'd forgotten about that till he started talking, getting there, and I was like, "Oh my God, I remember that now." The reality of the inspiration of the new nation is the trust that you think, and therefore you are. If you are watching this, it is in the mind of the beholder, because the mind of the beholder is the mind that is so kind as to listen to me talk to you here in this little group, and to all those who may hear this hereafter. I am the one who trusted on you. I trusted on you from the beginning, you see, because when I came into this world, that is, into my first incarnation on earth, I said, what a beautiful world, what a beautiful world. What a beautiful world that God has created in His mercy. For those of us who have been searching for a home, because we were a family of souls that were searching for a home. So, although you know us by a name today, my name here that I use is Thomas. Steve uses the name Steve, and Steph uses the name Steph. We have had so many lifetimes on one planet or another that they are dwarfed only by the sands on the beach and the stars in the sky. You are a recipient of the energy that comes to you through the airwaves that bring to you the vision of reality. It comes to you in a little package that you know as a photon. And it expands and expands because it refracts, you see. And this is the essence of reality, that it is a refraction of the light that pierced the night and created the world you see around you, because you are the recipient and you are also the one who puts it there. You put it there because you open your eyes and you see it. If you don't open your eyes, it won't happen. It won't happen. And so all of you have a reality that belongs to you. When I say it belongs to you, we've used this word before, it means to belong, to have a long point of view. And you have a long point of view and a long relationship with your reality, because your reality comes to you with a history, you see. In other words, your reality comes to you with a story. It is your story. It is his story. It is her story. This is the meaning of history. It is your journey through time and space in a little spaceship, because the little spaceship, you see, is the embryonic body of humanity. I say embryonic because it is the beginning and not the ending, you see. This is the beginning and not the ending of your journey. You are the culmination of your history, of course. However, The culmination of your history will change moment by moment. And those of you who are listening to me will never be the same, you see, because you have changed. You have changed because you are listening to me and I am talking to you through Steph because she can hear me very well and she doesn't worry about it. She doesn't worry about it. She doesn't say, oh, my mother said it could not be this way. Oh, my priest would try to do an exorcism on me. Oh, all my friends are going to run away. Oh, I must be crazy. They're going to lock me up. She doesn't say that. She just says, hi, Thomas. And I say, hi, Steph. What should we talk about today? And she says, well, I have some questions for you. And I say, okay, give them to me and I'll try my best to answer them. And this is all it takes, you see, is to forget how they tried to hamstring you when you were so small that you didn't know any better. And that's why you can't recall your other lives. Because if you could recall them, you see, you'd have a real quandary. How could you overcome all the dark energy that you have gone through as a new point of view on earth? Every child is a new point of view. You are a new observer of reality. You are a new creator of reality. You are here because you think. You see? You are here. You are here. Look around you and say, I am here. This is my reality. I am here. I am sitting here, standing here, kneeling here, whatever it is. I am here because this is my reality and I am this body, you see? I am this body of reality because it's not just your physical arms and legs and whatnot. You are the body of everything you see. This is your reality. This is you. You look out your window and you see a tree. This is you. The tree is you. You are your reality. It exists inside of you, and you have a point of view that allows you to exist within it at the same time. Let me repeat that. It exists inside of you, and you also have a singular point of view that allows you to exist within it and to move around within it. And this is the miracle of life, you see. This is the nature of duality, that it will always contain you and you will always be contained by it. This is the nature of life. And if you think that you can escape it, then give it a try and let me know how it goes. Give it a try. If you think you can escape your reality that you have created and that you then receive, give it a try. The inspiration for the new nation of humanity is the simple realization that I am here. I am here. That's all I can say is I am here. And each of you, that's all you can say is I am here. You're not somewhere else. You're where you are in your reality. You are where you are in your reality. And where you are can differ from day to night. Because in the night, you take flight, and that's where you are. That's where you are. That's your point of view. And it will seem very chaotic to some of you. And to some of you, you will feel like you worked very, very hard during the night. And that is what happened to Steph and Sissel last night. They worked very, very hard to recover a different point of view that they had before it was knocked out of them. When will you come to me and say, hey, Thomas, I heard you today, and I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you my story. And I will say, thank you. Tell me your story, dear. Because when you tell me your story, then our stories merge, you see? And you become a part of me, and I become a part of you. And we will continue to go on our journey one way or another. Sometimes we will experience being together, and sometimes we'll experience being apart. A part. Do you understand that? A part is to be one slice of the pie. We will experience being a part of each other. And you'll be one slice of my pie, and I'll be one slice of yours. But I'll have the whole pie, and you'll have the whole pie. And you understand this.
Yes.
So when we are apart, we are a part of each other's pie. And that is why we will never be separate again, you see, because we're a part of each other's reality. You will remember me, and I will remember you. I may not call it into view at any moment because I have other things to do, but I will remember you because you are part of my story. I am my story. I am my journey. This is the nature of individualization of God energy, is that you are your journey through time and space. And the place where you come to rest is the place that is the best, because you come to rest in the white light, you see? Because the white light is the totality of everything you see. And if you took everything that you saw right now, and you could take all the various streams of light and mix them up together, you would get white light. This is the eternal balance of your reality. It's the eternal balance of my reality. It is the eternal balance of every reality. That what is in your sight is white. However, it has divided through a process that is the miracle of life into many, many fractured versions of itself. And those fractured versions of itself are the experience of you and who you are. You are your story. I am my story. And now this is a part of both of our stories, for all of our stories, for everyone who listens to this will have a part of me in their story. And I will continue on my way. And one day you'll come to me and say, hey, Thomas, I remember that day that I heard you say da 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 da. And I will say, I remember that too. How interesting that you were there that day and I didn't know it, because you see, my light continued to shine and it fell on you. And you said, oh, this is interesting. I like this light because it makes me think more clearly than I did before. And that's the nature of the light, you see? It makes you think more clearly than you did before. And so, although when I'm done talking here, Steph will process a video and put it up as planned, she won't know who will hear it, and neither will I, because you haven't come into our reality yet, you see? You haven't come to me and said, hey, Thomas, I heard you talk through Steph, and I heard what you said, and I want to say that made my day. Or I want to say that was the stupidest thing I ever heard. And I will say, hey, go away. Because if it's the stupidest thing you ever heard, then you just came here to peck at me. You just came here to peck at the windowsill and like a woodpecker and never bother to understand what I was trying to tell you. If you come to me and say, hey, Thomas, I heard you talk the other day and I wanted to understand it better. Could you help me clarify this point, what you're trying to say? And I would say, sure, let me talk to you because we're meeting as equals, you see. We're meeting in the light and not in the dark. But if you run around telling people how stupid they are and how ignorant and how everything they say is completely blind to reality, then you are the one who is in the dark. And if you already know what they have to say, then you say, hey, you think like me. You think like me. And if they don't think like you, it's okay. It's okay. You can go away. Just say, I heard you talk the other day. I didn't understand any of it. However, I got other things to do today. So I just wanted to wish you a happy day. See? And then you go on your way and you don't worry about it. It doesn't make any sense to you. And so when you get into an argument about who's stupidest and who has the darkest energy, then you might as well stick yourself through the foot to the pavement and stand there like a statue that will never grow because you never know when you might get a new point of view if you're willing to share your story with others. You see? Now, Roselle, what did you wish to say?
I enjoy hearing you better than when I stood at Williamsburg and stared at your statue and listened to the reenactors saying what they thought you had said in your lifetime. This is more profound. Thank you. And is when you say that you are your story, you mean you're the combined story of all the lives you have lived?
Yes. They're all there. They won't disappear because this is the continual replication of the energy of love, you see? The energy of love is the trust on God above. That all of this that you have experienced and all that everyone else in your experience has experienced is the trust that there is a singular overarching principle that is keeping it all organized, you see? And that is the principle of God energy, which is love, you see, because love is the basic trust on being free of anxiety. Let me explain that. Love is like saying that you are always held in the arms of another, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you love another, you always hold them safe inside you. And you say, I love you when you love another. Because really what you're saying is, I am the same as you. We're both made of love. And I can see it in you, and I can see it in me. So the idea of God the Almighty is the idea that love is the unifying principle and that it is like a camera that records every moment of every day in every way, in every place, in every sphere. It is the totality of everything that you can think, everything you see, everything you do in all your lifetimes and in the lifetimes of all those who will come to you. Because until they come to you, you're not aware of them, you see? Until the three of you connected, you were not aware of each other, right?
Mhm.
And little by little, you've come to become more important to each other because you share every day in the way that you think and play. Because even if you are apart, you are a part of each other. And you have all been altered by the others, you see? Your reality has been altered by the others. However, the concept of love is that you all have had your own stories and that you can share your stories, and you do share the stories of your lives with each other. And so the concept is that since time began, and time, of course, is a tricky concept because it's related to another tricky concept, which is space, you have been on a journey. And so when you come and talk about your journey with us, then we say, well, it is like another ray of light has appeared in the sky because it was always there. We just didn't see it before. Stephanie always wondered if when a new star or planet was discovered, if it had always been there, or if it suddenly appeared only as a result of the experience of discovering it. In other words, is the creative power such that whatever we become aware of suddenly is experienced as an explosive event, a creative event? Or do we trust upon the fact that it has always been there and that we just didn't know it was there? It doesn't matter. It does not matter, you see, because if it was always there and we weren't aware of it, then what did it matter? What did it matter? However, when we become aware of it and we say, well, this is the thing that we didn't see, and it was always here, but now we're aware of it. Or we could say, this has changed my reality. This has changed my reality because I see there's something new in my reality. And if I am the creator of my reality, then I must have created this. The tricky part in all of this is the concept of time and space. And this is something that you'll never get your head around. So just forget it and just accept that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it suddenly was created at that moment when someone became aware of it, or if it was always there. Just let it go. Just let it go. And she doesn't care, really. She just says, this opens me to a more expansive understanding of reality. It just helps me to know that the duality is always there. It's always there. And therefore, I don't have to worry about all the water running off the edge of the world because the duality is always there, you see? I can walk on the world as if it is flat and not go rolling down the sides of the earth. And I can know that the earth is round. And so little by little, we come to see that everything fits together perfectly. It fits together perfectly. It is the way of nature that it fits together perfectly. And you will come to see then that you fit together perfectly. You fit together perfectly with your reality. You're perfectly matched to each other because it's inside of you and you are inside of it. So, how could there be a problem? How could there be a problem? There is no problem other than the continual restoration of our point of view as we continue to go around the tree. And you all know the story of the tree in the field. I won't repeat it. However, as we go around the tree, we are constantly getting a new point of view. And when we get a new point of view, we can say, well, this is something new. This is something new. How does this change my reality? How does this change my reality? How did it change the reality of a lot of people when they heard that there was this huge land across the ocean from Europe? How did it change their reality? As they learned more and more about this strange land, and as others went there and met the natives and brought back stories, how did it change their reality? You see? How does it change your reality when you get a new piece of information? Stephanie talked yesterday about how many years ago she went to a fire walk, and she, with a lot of others, walked across a long expanse of very hot red coals without burning their feet. And this changed her reality. It changed the reality of the world that she could see. And she said to herself, wow, if we could do that, why couldn't we walk on water? What is stopping us from walking on water? Only our trust that we can't do it. You see, only our trust that it's impossible to walk on water. When man first stood on the moon, it changed the reality of everybody on earth, you see. It changed their reality. And when they picked up a rock and it wasn't made of cheese, they said, hey, it's different today. It's different today. All those pockmarks are on the moon are not from some giant alien monster that comes and eats a bit of cheese. Our reality has changed, and therefore our point of view has changed. And it affects everything. Everything gets jumbled up a bit. Well, it's shifting, you see, because every significant change in your point of view will result in a reshifting of the weight, you might say, in the back of your pickup. I'm picking this up as a metaphor from a story that Steph wrote. And I thought it was a pretty good metaphor, so I'm using it. If the weight is shifting in the bed of your pickup, then you're going to feel it as you're driving down the road. And you may feel a little bit of wobble in your world because the world will wobble a bit, right? And another way to say it is the weight in your backpack is shifting. And it's causing a little bit of strain on this arm or that arm or whatever. And you may stop and try to sort it all out again. Or you put something new in your back. And now it doesn't feel the same. Jabs you in the back. This is what happens when your world shifts. Now, how does your world shift? It shifts because it has to. It shifts because it has to. Because you see, you cannot live in a human body in a world without leaving your footprint somewhere. And therefore, your footprint is going to change the world in some way, right? And sometimes there's going to be a big shift because the weight of all those footprints has shifted the orientation of the world, you see? And there's going to be suddenly a big shift. There might be an earthquake, there might be a volcano, but we all know that it is only because of the pressure that has built up below. It's not like one day somebody did step on Mount Rainier and it blew up because of the weight of their foot. All of these things have been going on for a long, long time. And someday, everything will change so much, you'll say, hey, what happened to yesterday? What happened to yesterday? And that's the way it is today, that yesterday is gone, you see? And it is always gone. Yesterday is always gone. But sometimes there's so little difference between yesterday and today that you don't realize it until you wake up one day and you say, hey, my house just burned down. It is the end of my house, and therefore it is the end of my yesterdays. Because you needed a new point of view. Because you were stuck in your old point of view. And so something inside of you said, time to get a new point of view, and all I see is every day is the same as the day before, da 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 da. Because you're not sensitive enough to see the changes, and you're not clear enough to observe them. And you are not trusting on your own ability as a creative being. Now, Roselle, go ahead. What's your question or thought?
Haven't we all metaphorically walked over a bed of coals for some period of time in our lives? And have I feel I have walked on water. I've kept from drowning in situations where nothing but God could keep me up.
Are you asking if we have experienced out of sequence phenomena that does not fit into the point of view that your mother gave to you? Is
Yes.
that what you mean?
Well,
Yes, of
it's
course.
just the
Of course, of
metaphor of
course, of course. These conversations in themselves are a out of sequence, out of time event, right? Your mother didn't tell you that it was the way it went. And so your reality and your point of view has had to take a major revamping, right?
yes. And I don't want to point just at my mother, but at all kinds of cultural and religious teachings.
Right. That's your mother. Earth is your mother. Physical reality
Yes,
is your mother.
of course. But I had a mother
Comes
that
to you.
was
It comes to you
powerful.
with a lot of cheap, 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 cheap talk. Go ahead.
I just said I had a mother who, my physical mother was so powerful. She was like the force of nature. So it takes some adjusting.
Well, the relationship with your mother is a very, very unique one in each lifetime. And it's a very special one. And I don't care if your mother abandoned you when you were a baby or died when you were born or whatever. Your relationship with your mother is a unique one. And when you get back to heaven, you'll talk it through and you'll say, hey, I remember you. And why did you do such and such or such and such? And then you'll talk it through, right? The metamorphosis, you might say, in the relationship between Steph and her mother is a good example. Her mother in this lifetime, because in this lifetime they did not see eye to eye and they went their separate way. And Steph did say, well, she just has a different point of view than I do. And I can't understand her and she can't understand me. We're just too different to live together. So I'll just go on my way and do what I do and find my own way. And her mother said, well, she's a brat and she is too stubborn and she always wants to do it her way. And so she can't fit into my reality. So I'm glad she goes away. because in my reality, we do it a certain way. And then when her mother got to heaven and she got pulled into the conversations that we have in the circle, she began to get a new point of view. And Steph got a new point of view of her too, because Steph didn't know that her mother had done certain things that had affected her life, you see? She didn't know that because nobody had told her. Her mother hadn't told her. And so she said, oh, so that's why that was that way. And it helped her to get a new point of view that helped her to understand her life better. For example, her mother was not willing to allow her to be skipped up a grade or two, even though she was so bored in the classroom that she about died. And the teachers wanted to help her, but her mother said no, because she didn't want her getting special attention that her siblings were not getting, you see? And so she said, no, I'm not going to reward her for being a brat. And that was where it was at. And Steph didn't know this. She just thought that that was the way it had to be, that she just had to be so bored in school that she actually spent her time covertly reading and doing puzzles and writing behind her textbook, and thought that that was how it had to be. You just had to be bored to death in school. And so when she heard that from her mother, she said, oh, well, she heard it from someone else. She said, oh, that makes sense to me now. That makes sense. They weren't just ignoring me. It was just that they couldn't help me. So now I understand that they did care that I was so bored, and they did know that I was so bored. And so it relieved a lot of her anxiety, you see, because she thought it was just the way it had to be in that day and age, that they just wouldn't even consider it. So knowing that they did consider it helped her to see that they actually did care about her. You see? And her mother gradually came to see how her religious training had impacted her reality. And so she gradually began to let go of that old mentality so that she could return to a good vibration on love, you see? Because she couldn't love Stephanie as long as Stephanie did not conform to her mother's reality, you see? So her mother's reality had to shift. And Stephanie's reality shift, she didn't dislike her mother. She thought she was actually a very powerful mother too. However, she saw them as too diverse in the way that they saw the world to have any hope of being friends, you see? And so, as time does go, regardless of whether we have a close relationship with our mother or a distant one, regardless of whether they abandon us at birth or die at birth or whatever, we want to know the whole story. There's something inside of us that wants to know the whole story because we have to integrate their story into our story, you see? If we can't integrate it, if we're just like bumper cars bumping up against each other constantly, then we cannot grow the way that we are intended to grow. Because this is the nature of life, you see, that it will continue to replicate, but it would also continue to change its essential nature through the creative process that works through all of us. Does this make sense to you?
It does, yes.
Now, when you tell me your story, I say, oh, how nice. And thank you for sharing with me. Now, some people think that we know everything here, and we don't. We don't know everything when we're in heaven. I can't look at you, Roselle, and say, I know all of her history. I can only rely on my past experience with you. And I say, okay, I remember when Roselle and I talked 200,000 years ago, and I know her. I know her. However, I don't know all your story of why you acted a certain way or did certain things, etc. And so when we talk and you share your story and you say, well, I always thought this way, I say, oh, that's why she did it that way. Steph says, that's why my mother did it that way, because da 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 da. And she had some pieces filled in because her mother and others told her about it. You see? Even though her mother was very close to her in a physical sense, she was distant in an emotional sense. And when she came to Steph and she said, you know, I always hated you, Steph said, I didn't know that. I didn't know you hated me. I just thought we were too different to see eye to eye. And that was just the way you acted, because that's the way you acted. So it was a surprise to her to hear her mother say that. And so even though they were in close proximity, she never interpreted it in the way that her mother did. Her mother interpreted it differently. She interpreted it as, I just hated having you around because you're always causing problems. Not that Steph was a problematic kid. It was just that she had a different point of view. And she would do it her own way. And her mother did it a different way. And this is the same with you, Roselle. You will find out some secrets that you didn't know, right? You've already found out some that you didn't know, right? And it has changed your point of view, right? It has changed your point of view because you were able to talk to your mother in heaven and your grandmother and get a different point of view. Because Steph didn't care that her mother wore her hair a different way than her. She just said, well, she's different than me. I don't have to do what she tells me to. I don't have to see the world the way she tells me to. So, do you see how the fact that Steph's mother and her had a particular relationship helps Steph to continue to be so independent of the typical Catholic or Protestant point of view, that she didn't bat an eye when she helped you connect with your mother? Do you see how it's all connected? So everything you do leaves a footprint that will affect the lives of others in some way. And so because she affected your life, because of the relationship she had with her mother, you might say, or at least it caused a certain trajectory, then your trajectory has changed and you are affecting others, right? And so the same with Sissel. So the energy is continually replicated, but always in a unique way. Always in a unique way. The patterns are always unique. Go ahead, Sissel.
I just want to ask, because I tried to ask my mother many times to tell me her story, and she always refused. So is it possible to kind of the only word I can use is heal my story with her without knowing all the secrets?
Is it possible to what without knowing all the secrets?
To heal my story with my mom without understanding her completely, because I don't know what she was hiding.
Well, you'll have your point of view on it,
Yes?
but you won't know her point of view.
No?
And so you won't be able to, so there'll just be this question there. I mean, you'll go on with life and everything, but there'll be this question there, but you won't be able to fully integrate
Mm.
what happened because you won't have the 2 points of view.
No.
So you're on the tree and your mother says that the flower's on the right, and you think, well, they're on the left. So you can't see her point of view, why she says that.
No.
You can't integrate it until she shares it with you.
Mm. Yeah, I see that.
And that's what we do. Walking around the tree doesn't have to be you physically walk around the tree. Of course, that's important.
Mm.
But other people can share their point of view with you.
Mm.
If somebody's high up and they're looking down in the forest, they can share their point of view with you and say, hey, you need, they're on the telephone. You need to go right, go about half a mile right to the right, and just try to get through there. You'll come to a path, get on that path, head north, and you'll be fine.
Mm.
But you could wander around in the forest forever because you're not getting that other point of view. The way I understand it, anyway. Let me see. Let me see what they say, though. Thomas says, your mother and you are still revolving around each other, you might say, because that's what happens when you are trying to understand each other. You just revolve around each other until you say, hey, we need to unite our energy. And in order to unite our energy, we need to stand still a moment, look each other in the eye, and say, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? And listen to it, and then share your story. If your mother is unwilling to share her story so that you can't understand her point of view, then there is still a lot of work to do to integrate that energy, you see? I want to talk about another aspect of group energy. And that is that when each of you feel confident of your own place in a group and your own ability to create your own reality, then you will find that you are good friends and you'll walk along together on the path and you'll say, this is what I see. Somebody else will say, this is what I see. And then you'll say, well, I didn't see that. Tell me about it. And then you'll continually be integrating your energy. And that's what happens in a healthy family. You're continually integrating your energy. The kid comes home and says, the principal says, I have to cut my hair or I'm going to be suspended. And the mother says, well, what do you want, honey? Tell me your story. Why is it important to you? And let's figure it out. She doesn't say you have to do it this way. When somebody says to you, you have to do it this way, your choice is you conform or you don't. You become a rebel. You don't integrate your story, your reality, you see? And so when you are in a group that integrates its reality and you encounter someone who is not a good vibration on trusting on their own ability to be creative, they may either react to you as wanting to be like you and conform to you, or they may rebel and say, I can't be like you. Because they will think that you are telling them what to do. Because that's all they know. They don't have the confidence in their own ability to integrate their reality with those of others. Now, even if you have the confidence to integrate your reality with others, you're not going to be able to do that if the other person doesn't want to. It takes two. It takes three, four, five. It takes a whole community willing to integrate its energy with each other. And so in the beginning, when we were on Earth, those of us who were part of the Elohim, we integrated our energy easily. Someone said, I want to do this. And we said, okay, talk to us about that. What do you want to do? And how are you going to do it? And etc. And everybody would say, well, I don't see it that way, or I do see it that way, or that makes sense to me. And then we'd talk it through until we had come to a consensus, you see, because the consensus is the connection that you reach when you come to your senses. So come to your senses. What do I mean by come to your senses? Well, look around you, listen, see. And when someone talks to you and says something that seems foreign to you, say to them, can you help me see what you see? Can you help me hear what you hear? And if they say no, thank you, I don't want to share with you, then just go on your way. However, what happens a lot today is people will say, you need to read this, you need to see this, you need to do this, you need to hear this, because they're so accustomed to the trust on being told what to do, that they think they have to tell others what to do. If you come across something that you think is really important to someone, you could always ask them. You can say, hey, I read this today and it changed my point of view. And this is my new point of view. And then the other person can say, well, that's really interesting. However, I've already had that point of view, so I'm not really interested in reading that or hearing it or listening to it. I've already been in my journey on that part of the mountain. I've already seen it. But you're reading the travelogue that is about some place you've never been. So it's very interesting to you, but it's not interesting to me. I'm more interested in your point of view. I'm more interested in your story than hearing somebody else's story. Or they might say, well, that's very interesting. I never heard that before. Give me the site and I'll go look it up and see if I can read it too. And so it's up to you. It's up to you to understand that both you and everyone else are integrating your reality in a way where they have seen things you haven't, where they have been places you haven't, or they have been the same places you've been. They've seen the same things you have. We've all been to the ocean and played on the beach, perhaps. So it's something we understand. It's not a big deal. And then someone comes to you and says, well, I just read this account of somebody who'd been to a beach. I've never been to a beach, but I thought you might enjoy it. And you say, well, that's okay, because I've already seen the beach with my own eyes. And if you want to go to the beach and see it with your own eyes and then come back and tell me your point of view, then I'll listen to you. But the problem with things that people say, why don't you listen to this? Why don't you hear this? Why don't you see this? Is that it's not an exchange of energy, you see. It might work for you because it gives you an answer to your questions. And you can recommend it to others and say, this is a good movie. You should see this movie. It's a good book. You should read this book. You can recommend it to them, but don't expect that they have to feel the same way you do, because they have a different point of view. Everybody has a different point of view, and everybody has a different need in order to change their point of view. And so sometimes it will be a way to help others. And sometimes if you think that it helped you and they don't think it helped them, it may make you feel a little bit bad. Just understand that everybody has their own point of view. And everybody except you is the one who will come to you with a new point of view, if that can be unraveled by you. Everybody will come to you with a new point of view. Even when you look in the mirror, you're going to get a new point of view. Because how many of you can see your own face? Have you ever looked at a picture and said, hey, I didn't know I looked like that?
Many times. Oh, that old?
Sometimes you can see the other way. So they say, I look kind of pretty there. I didn't know I was that pretty. Yeah. Wow. And so you get a new point of view.
Mm.
Or you look in the mirror and you say, look at my hair today. It's a mess. I better comb it. Or you look in the mirror and you say, like Steph did the other day, oh my God, I went to the store and I went everywhere and I had a bunch of frosting with big cookies all down, red frosting out here.
Christmas cookie?
And everybody must have thought it was pretty weird that I didn't wipe it off, but I didn't know it was there. So sometimes you get a surprise when you look in the mirror and it changed your point of view. So for a little bit, she was embarrassed and she hadn't been embarrassed before. So she had a new experience, right? It's as simple as that, that you can have these different experiences every day in every way. And it won't always be the same. Okay. We're about to the end of our allotted agreed time here. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Well, Thomas, do you want to close up or do you want to give somebody else a chance? God is here to close the session. And I would like to say that I got caught up in the conversation today because, of course, Thomas is a favorite son of mine. And that's not to say you're not a favorite son or daughter. It's just to say you're all kind of my flavor. And I like all the different flavors of humanity. And I like the fact that every one of you has a gift to give to me. However, it's a little bit frustrating when you don't give it to me. You don't give me the gift of your creativity. And so I'm very happy with this group because it's a very, very creative group. And a lot is happening because the more creative you are, the more you change your point of view, the more you have to undo the zipper, so to speak. You have to undo the zipper on your backpack and take out all the vibrations that no longer fit your no point of view. So when you walk around the tree and you say, oh, I see the flowers are on the right from this side, but they were on the left from the other side. I get it. It changes because I have changed. I have changed. I am the one that changed because I have both a right and a left. And I turned around and I looked at it from the other side. And now I got a different point of view. So what are you going to do? Your mother told you that the flowers are always on the left. And now you got a problem. You got a conflict because you trusted her. And if you trusted her and you don't trust her anymore, then can you trust her on anything she ever said? Right? And this is what happens to young people often. They get to the point where they learn that their parents lied to them and they say, can I ever trust them again? And they go on a wild fling, doing everything their parents told them not to do because they got to find out what things were true and which were not because they can't trust their parents to guide them anymore. And so this is my message to you. I love every one of you. I love you in whatever way you play. I love you wherever you stay. I love you even when you're turned to clay and sit there like a discarded piece of pottery on the path while others walk by you. I still love you. And all you have to do is reactivate your trust on me. And then I will help you to change back into a human being and not be a piece of pottery alongside the path. I will help you to see that when you get a new point of view, you're going to have to let go of these strings that were attached to you and holding you back. And it can be a little bit of discomfort in it. However, it's not so bad when you trust on me. Just come to me and say, hi, God, here's what's going on with me today. Let me tell you about it. And here's what I need. And I will say, thank you for sharing with me what's going on with you today and sharing with me what you need. Let's see if we can figure it out together. I'll help you. And I may send you some messages that you'll receive in various ways. You might find out that your house is on fire. And then you have to say, my house is on fire. Is this what you mean, God? That you're trying to meet my needs for financial security? And I say, you betcha, honey. Just follow along with the script and don't try to control it. You see, if you try to control your reality rather than create your reality, then you're coming at it wrong. And it's sort of like the difference between integrating your reality with others and conforming to another reality. So just trust on your ability to be creative with me, because it is God energy that will bring to you the things that you need. So trust on the water falling from the sky to bring life to the planet. Trust on the snow that will glow in the sunset, and say, God has it in hand. God has it in hand. All I have to do is work with God and he'll work with me. You see? I love you, and may you love me. This is the God you see in everything around you. This is the God of your reality, because you are very, very real to me. May I be real to you. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Any thoughts from anybody?
It was great, Stephanie and Sissel. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. This is, I can feel that this is going to integrate in me, because it was very, very, very great, very powerful.
When I think of how much things, what am I going to say? It's not so much that things have happened out in the physical reality as we know it for me, but how things have been moving inside. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, indeed.
How some things have changed in the physical reality for sure. But what I'm thinking is how things are moving so fast inside. All those pieces are in, all that weight in the pickup's being redistributed. And then it'll be interesting to see what happens, how it coordinates with the physical reality. Because if the reality is inside of you or you're processing it, but you're inside of it because you have a point of view, then you're going to have to see it manifesting in your world around you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the simple way that I see it. I see it as whatever you think, wish, desire, whatever is going to manifest around you. And, I mean, I don't understand enough. All I just say is I trust on God to figure it out.
Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. I'm really curious in how things develop, because so much has changed inside me. So it has to come in manifestation outside of me too. So, and how it would look like.
Mhm.
And you to God.
And I see it in the physical too, of course, because, we have a lot of physical things that have resulted. I have seen them, books, videos, tons of videos, friendships, changing in relationships. Your relationships start to change. The people that you're connected to, the people you're not connected to, new people on your path. Remember when we first heard about global warming last summer, and I went and looked it up, and I was like, oh, holy shit, they were right. So that is whatever's going there is a change in our reality. Certainly COVID was a change in our reality. Grocery prices, when you go to the store, is a change in your reality. It's constantly changing. And what is changing into, look at how we've shifted how we shop. I admit that I shop all the time on Amazon. I don't want to go out of my house, I have to go dig around for stuff, spend hours looking for something I want. And so we are the way that we shop, and it's affecting the stores, and it's affecting the people that are affected by the stores closing, and it's constantly shifting.
Yeah, but the shifting has kind of increased as I see it now after COVID. Everything changed so fast that the shops has to close down, the cafeterias, restaurants are closing down because people, as you say, go to the internet. They use the
Right.
internet and they gather at home or in smaller groups.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And who knows what big changes with volcanoes and earthquakes are coming. I mean, we've already seen in localized areas, we've all already seen huge cataclysmic events, and even wars and things like that. And I know that all of us are committed to a world of peace and harmony. And that's our creative effort overall. And so God brings it whatever way he wants. I mean, whatever way he can, whatever way it works, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it may require some redistributing of the weight, of our points in our points of view, in our belief structure. Definitely in our belief structure, I guess would be the way to say it, right?
That is something I am working very much into, to be more and more aware of what I'm believing in, what I see, to try to kind of change it, because I know that the belief system I have create my reality. So things are
Right.
shifting. Yeah.
And all those little hidden stinkers, I call them, those little belief systems. We were talking about, the someone privately, it wasn't on this thing, but we were talking about an example of how you have these vibrations. You have the vibrations that a certain vibration and how they may conflict with other vibrations. So you see someone that you think is good and you at work and you send out this vibration saying, well, you look pretty good. I'm interested in you. And they will feel that vibration, and either they will push it away for whatever reason, because they have some other vibration that is really conflicting with it, or they'll accept it and say, well, you look pretty good too. But there may be vibrations. And what we were saying is that maybe your mother had told you should never have anything to do with someone who's Asian or whatever, could be. And you said, okay, I'm not going to. But it could be so subtle. It could be when you were 5 years old, your mother said, well, Aunt Mary is getting divorced, her husband is giving her a hard time. I told her she shouldn't marry an Asian. They're no good. When you're 5 years old, that single statement could have impacted you for, the rest of your life, unless you can find it and pull it out. It's like those little stickers, the thorn in your side that you can't find. It just hurts.
Yeah, and those are the hard ones to find.
Right.
So actually,
and that's where you can ask God's help. You can say, hey, I don't I don't know what's going on here, but things don't seem to be working out, coming together right. Is there something in my matrix, in my soul history, is some belief that is a vibration that is undermining my path?
Mm. And undermining the world I want.
Right.
Yeah.
And so obviously being able to communicate freely with individuals, if you said to your mother, hey, mom, I really like this guy, but he is Asian and I don't want to, I know you don't like Asians and you told me to stay away from them. And she says, never told you that. Well, I remember that you did somehow. I got that impression. Well, I never told you that. And then maybe together you'll pick it apart and you'll realize that it goes back to when you were 5 years old and you just heard her say that as kind of an offhand remark. But it made an impression because you were 5.
Mm.
And you trusted her implicitly that everything she said was absolutely right. And so maybe if the two of you conversed, you would be able to pull it out. And that's why it's good to be able to talk to those who are in spirit, because they're willing usually to talk because they don't have any stake in it any.
Yes. And when we are in heaven, we don't need secrets. So
Right.
yeah, everything is in the open. So I
Well,
hope we
not everything is in the open. I've learned that. Not everything is in the open. Believe me. But you don't have worries or concerns, as they said. And when a memory comes up that you don't like, you just push it away. And so she might not, in heaven, she might not even remember that. But because she might not think about it until that's the difference I've learned, is that for those who are in spirit, they have no incentive to explore their unhappy memories.
Okay.
They just sit in their happy memories.
Mm.
But if you don't look at your unhappy memories, you can't pull out the issues that you'll face when you come back to Earth. Because when you come back to Earth, God will stick your nose in it again to help you make a different choice. But if you can figure out what your issue is, then you don't have to keep getting your nose stuck in it.
Yeah, I would love that.
What?
I would love to be quit the heavy energies. Either I'm here or there.
A good example of this is the story of Abraham and Mary Lincoln. How Abraham was so frustrated because Mary was so cold in bed. And he was very frustrated and he didn't know what he could do. And he just finally gave up. And so he was a very lonely man. But it was only when Mary would come to me and say, hey, can you go talk to Abraham and see it? Because we have to go back to Earth now. And we need to have a life together. And it's time to have a life together. And can you talk to him about it? He's like, no way. I'm not going back. No way am I going to have a life with her, where we're husband and wife. They're twin souls. I'm not going to do that. And it was only through talking it through, that whole story, I know you know, but those who are listening might not know. It's only through talking it through that we figured out, because I was alert to it. When she started talking about it, I was like, oh my God, Mary, it was your dad, wasn't it? And, he's the one that crawled into your bed when you were a little girl, right? And, so then it all came out. But before I forced the issue, she just wouldn't think about it. She just brushed it away. If there was any thought that was unpleasant to her. Abraham was, determined he wasn't going to do it, and they've both gone back to Earth, in my understanding, reincarnated, but push it away. And once it came out, Abraham was like, oh, I get it. Mid 19th century America, and your dad is fiddling with you when you're a little girl, and you don't even know, you can't talk to anyone. You don't even know what's right, what isn't right. And so you grow up and he stops doing it as you get older. I think her dad remarried too. He stops doing it as you get older, and then you just think, well, it's just something that happens to little girls. And then you get married and you're used to be treating like a princess because he treated you like a princess. And you're used to be treating you like a princess, and you marry this tall, lumbering guy that was from the backwoods, and he wants you to be have sex with you. And you're like, she says it was a wonder they had the children they did. Anyway, but they couldn't reach that issue. Abraham understood as soon as it came out. Abraham was like, "Of course, that explains it all. Now that we know it, we don't have to keep, you know, knocking our heads against this. We can work it out." But they couldn't reach that issue because in heaven, you just want to bask in the happy memories, not the sad ones. And until they connect, and that was the value of the connections we have between heaven and earth, is that they get an opportunity to work on the issues they had before they come back to earth. Otherwise, you just come back to earth, as they would say, God hands you your backpack full of your issues, and you come back and you got to go through it again until you make a different choice and you say, "Hey, Abraham," whatever his name is in the new life, "Hey, Abraham, I got to tell you a secret, that I've kept a long time. And I hate to talk about it. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but," and you begin to share and integrate and integrate it into your reality. And of course, Steve had a secret from the time he was 18 or 19 that he absolutely could not share. And that, he was looking over his shoulder the rest of his life. So, those things are things that you're going to have to come back to earth to work out, because you're not going to work them out in heaven. You can see the lay of the land, but why worry about these things? You have no worries anymore. You're not worried about anything, but you have a happy memory. You're at the beach, you're enjoying yourself. Storm, you have a thought of a storm comes out, you say, "I don't want that storm." Away it goes. Your thoughts become your reality. But for Steve, I guess as God was telling me, he just didn't have any happy memories to work on. And so he was very, very attached to, still trying he needed new happy memories. Anyway, that's a long story. But we,
Stop.
thanks guys for being here again today. Anybody else, any thoughts? Okay, so we'll say goodbye to our audience, and thank you very much for tuning in. We will be back next Sunday, right?
Yep.
And here for you. And if you have, topics or questions, issues that you want to be addressed, just leave a comment. And I'm sure that those in the circle or God will respond, because that's what this is about. It's about the opportunity to share with you these communications and respond to your questions. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.